Away we go. All right. Hi, Ramsey. Um, I typically begin these sessions by starting with some SI questions, which is questions about your habits of eating, drinking, and sleeping. So let's start with the sleeping. Do you go to bed at a regular time, wake up at a regular time?
Usually, yeah.
Okay. How many hours of sleep do you think you need to get a night in order to feel like you've had enough sleep?
Uh, at least 7.
Okay. And if you wake up and you haven't had enough sleep, or is that something that you can tell by certain physical signs, or do you just,
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely didn't get enough sleep last night. We were out late, and uh, I pretty much function in like a weird dream state all day long. It's just hazy.
okay. Are you somebody who likes to take naps in the middle of the day?
No, not usually. I usually hate taking naps. But I did take a nap today because I was so tired. But that's a rarity.
Okay.
Do you find yourself getting like not eating for a long period of time and then finding that you're like all hangry and yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So, do you sort of actively try to make sure that doesn't happen, or does
Yes.
okay? And are you pretty successful at making sure that doesn't happen, or does it still happen sometimes?
It depends. Like during the work week, I'm pretty habitual, so that's fine. But when it comes to say on the weekend, I'll get up and I'll drink coffee and then I'll drink coffee for several hours and then suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I'm super hungry. Holy crap.
Right. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm in the middle of doing
Same
that right
here.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been pounding coffee. I haven't had anything to eat all morning. Um, okay. Let's see. Can you tell me some synonyms for the word? Uh,
Ornament.
Ornament?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Trotsky, figurine, uh, decoration.
What was that
Um,
last one?
I'm sorry, what?
What was that last one you said? Okay, gotcha.
Uh, ornament.
It's a tough one. Ornament.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Adornment.
Adornment, sure.
Ornament.
Comparison.
Any piece of jewelry could be an ornament.
Right.
Also,
Um, okay.
That was pretty good though.
So, all right. Can you define truth for me?
yeah, I'd say that truth is the thing that underlies everything. It is the single underlying thread that if someone's saying something, they could actually have uh, something else in mind, but that will kind of come out when they talk.
Does truth express in circumstances other than expressions of language?
Yeah.
Can you give me a non linguistic expression of truth? An example of one?
There, if I go over and I pick up a glass, it is true that I've picked up the glass. I put it down, then it is true that I've put that glass down.
Well, so, I mean, are those statements true, or is it something else that's true?
Well, the physical action is true. The statements are just a description of the physical action.
Physical actions are true or false?
They can be if they're being described.
But isn't it the
So it's
description that's true or false and not the physical action?
Hmm. That's an excellent question. I guess though that would circle back around to what I said initially, which was that statements have an inherent truth or false to them, and they're them being descriptive.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that truth, therefore, is discovered and not created? Or would you disagree with that statement?
I would say that truth is discovered.
Okay. Are there musical truths?
Hmm. I'm inclined to say yes, but I can also see how it could be no.
Okay.
I think from my perspective, I'm a musician, so
Okay.
for me, like when I'm writing, it's about finding the truth of the thing that's supposed to go next in a piece, and so I think, I mean, if someone's talking about actually like listening and enjoying something, like I don't think there's necessarily a truth as far as that piece is concerned in that, but insofar as writing, I think there is truth in music.
It's a good distinction to make. Certainly, people who write music behave as though there is. In other words, they certainly behave as though there are good and bad decisions to be made. But let's change the subject a little bit. If from a significant other, do you currently have a significant other?
Yeah, I'm married.
Okay. So, what gives you? What are you looking for your significant other to provide for you more? Uh, Feed you, remind you to brush your teeth, that kind of stuff, or to handle like social stuff, like oh, don't worry, I'll talk to Aunt Judy and clear things up, and I'll make sure that you know everything's kosher.
Yeah, the latter.
Okay. Um, if if all octopuses have tentacles, and
Hmm.
this thing that I'm eating has tentacles, can we conclude that it's an octopus?
Negative.
Okay. If only Egyptians build pyramids, and Joseph is building a pyramid, can we conclude that he's an Egyptian?
True.
Okay. Um, who is my maternal grandmother's only sons, only sisters, husbands, only child's maternal grandmother's husband?
Wow, you destroyed me there.
All right, let
Isn't
me.
that grandfather?
Yeah. Okay, so let's try another one. Another genealogy question. Uh, who is my father's only brother's son's sister's father in relation to me?
Your uncle?
Correct. Okay. Um, if Bob goes to the store, then Carl will stay home. And if Carl stays home, then Dora will leave the house to go get her Mac on. But if Bob does not go to the store, then Carl will go to the store and Bob will stay home. And Dora will have to stay home and she will not get her Mac on. Now, assuming that Bob stays home, what can we conclude?
Hmm. I have trouble working with that much information.
That's a lot of information. I concede that point. Okay, let me give you a different kind of question. Let me give you a different question. Question I used to ask. Another TI question I haven't asked in a long time, which is if Judy goes to soccer practice on Friday, then she'll be able to play in the game on Saturday. And if she plays in the game on Saturday, then either her mother or father, but not both, will see her play. Okay? Now, if she doesn't practice on Friday, then she won't play in the game on Saturday. And she will practice on Friday in all circumstances other than if she gets injured on Thursday. She does not get injured on Thursday. What can we conclude?
She goes to practice, she plays the game, and one of her parents shows up.
Okay, fine. All right. So I suspect both Isaiah and I have this narrowed down to two possibilities at this point. Pretty quickly, pretty straightforward. I mean, it's
One of the two I was thinking.
you're either an ENTP or an INTP.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So your initial answer that I gave to the question to try to distinguish between the two, namely about what you want from your significant other, would suggest INTP over ENTP, but that's not nearly enough information. So let's see if we can draw a clearer distinction here. Have you heard the troll question before?
I have.
Okay, I won't ask that one then. Have you heard the volcano question before?
I have also heard that question.
Okay, all right. Isaiah, you got any thoughts in mind right now while I try to brainstorm exactly how to better distinguish between ENTP and INTP? Why don't we ask him the bully question? I guess you probably heard that as well.
Chicken and the hen question as well.
I don't think I've heard that one.
All right, okay, yeah, let's do the bully question, which is your kid comes home from school and they inform you that this is what's happened at school. The bully, Joe, has come up to your kid at lunch and has taken some of your kid's food from his plate, and your kid went and told the teacher, but the teacher was very busy at that moment and said, "Not right now, Bobby, not right now," and he said, "But Joe stole my food from my plate," and the teacher says, "Well, listen, I'm busy right now. I'll have to deal with this later." And then your kid tries to go back to her later, and she just doesn't want to hear about it. Just deal with it, Bobby. I just don't want to hear about it. Now your kid comes home, they're crying, they're complaining to you that this is what happened. What do you do?
What do I tell my kid? Don't let him push you around.
Okay.
I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, I'm not necessarily one of those people who would condone that sort of behavior without some sort of retaliatory action.
But father, I did what was required of me. I didn't let them push me around. I reported the offense to the authority figure, and nothing was done.
And you did the exact right thing. But the next time that kid, what you need to do is you have two options. You can either learn to avoid this child and just not work, just try to stay away from it, or you can find a way to pick this kid apart.
Father, Mother has instructed me that I should put myself in the bully's shoes and consider how maybe the bully needed that food. What do you have to say about that?
I think that's a load of crap.
Okay. Let's ask you the chicken or rooster question, okay?
Yeah.
So there's this is a true story, by the way. Just for the record, okay? It's a true story. There's this chicken in England who had damage to one of its ovaries. And after it damaged one of its ovaries, it was in a flock of all hens. There was no rooster. After it damaged one of its ovaries, it started growing feathers like a rooster. It started cock-a-doodling like a rooster, and generally playing the role of the rooster throughout the whole flock. And the whole flock respected this chicken as a rooster at this point. So if a hawk came overhead, this chicken now acted like a rooster. It ran out and went rah 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 at the hawk, and then it warned the chickens to go hide, and it would stand up there and be tough and act, like protect the flock and cock-a-doodle-doo in the morning, did everything like a rooster does. Now, was this actually a chicken or a rooster?
It was a chicken.
Okay.
It was just acting a specific way because its ovaries and hormones have changed, more than likely. That's my guess.
But it's still a chicken.
Yeah, it's still a chicken.
Okay. So, that answer would be suggestive of ENTP over INTP. Because typically, ENTPs are, because their TI tool function, are expecting the world to present them with situations in which they have to make a firm conclusion and argue a firm conclusion. whereas INTPs are generally more expectant, are more expected in response to that question to go like, well, it really depends on your metric, you know. It depends on what measure stick you want to use because
Right.
ENTPs understand this too, but because it's tool function, we sort of expect the world to expect us to take a firm position on it one way or the other. And
Hmm.
and INTPs are somewhat more meta in their analysis typically. Which do you? I mean, we're both meta analysts, but it's like they don't answer questions directly like that. They go, well, let me meta analyze first.
That's
Well, see,
also
that's
why
because go ahead, Isaiah. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that's also why I think INTPs probably make better typologists than ENTPs do. It's because ENTPs have a tendency to have a habit of, oh, I'm kind of like unsure here, but I'm going to go ahead and take a position about your type, and then they end up having to change it later, kind of thing.
I don't think
So
that's a good observation at all, Isaiah.
you don't think so?
No, not remotely. I think I am the
Why
best
not?
typologist, and type be damned.
Yes, but that's because you're an individual. You can be a very, you can still be a good typologist and have that. Or I don't
Okay,
know.
what you
Did you have
say
something?
makes sense. Okay, listen, what you say makes some sense, but also it ignores the fact that part of the job of the typologist is to draw an NI conclusion, countervalued by INTPs, and therefore they're less likely to do it.
Yes, but yeah, that's exactly why ENTPs are more likely to take a position on someone's type, even though they're not
Well, I
fully
mean, you
certain
got to
about
take
it.
some position at the end of it. You can't just be
And that's
like
true. That's
left
true.
undetermined. Anyway, let's
But
not argue about this, Isaiah. We're supposed to be typing Ramsey, not arguing about this.
okay,
This is
okay.
your turn. Go right ahead.
I'll say one thing. I before we even asked the chicken or the rooster question, it was pretty. I smell you. I smell an ENTP basically. First of all, second of all, your TI question, when we asked you the TI questions, there were just a couple of times. I mean, we'd probably have to do a little bit more TI testing to see this in action a little bit more, but you lost track of it sometimes and
We probably won't
whatever.
see it
But
again, though. We won't see it again because if he's on point now, trying to win the test questions, then it won't see it
yeah,
again. Either way.
I was like, oh man, the TI questions. I was like, I'm gonna enjoy doing them, but I know that when they do pop up, I'm probably gonna psych myself out. And as soon as you went into the genealogy question, I was like, ah, shit.
Well, and I made it. I started off with a much tougher one than I normally would because it's pretty obvious your TI one too somewhere in there. So,
oh yeah, and it was too fast to be anything but 1-2. So yeah.
right. So okay. Let me see. Tell me about your attachments. You love your wife and you feel emotions towards her.
No,
Describe to me what those emotions are like.
I feel an immense amount of connection. I guess uh, it's very to me. It's very team oriented. I guess like I'm always kind of
I mean, you have a good relationship.
yeah. I mean, she. I mean, she's like a I don't know, like two atoms connected to each other. So I'm always like considering her in my head when a decision's coming up.
Do
Okay.
you know what type she is?
I believe she's ISFJ.
Hmm.
Do you miss her when you are at work? Be honest.
No,
Right. Of course not. Why would you miss somebody when you're at work? It's weird, right? It's a weird question.
I can't think about anything else while I'm at work except work. Usually.
Does she ever ask you, "Did you miss me while you were at work today?"
Mm-hmm.
Smart ISFJ. ESFJs will ask you that question and be disappointed when you tell them no.
She's really solitary too. So
Oh, okay. Cool.
we come together for conversation and meals and relationship time, but everything else we're just kind of off in our own space. So
All right, cool. Um, okay. Which day was better this week, Wednesday or Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Why?
I had insomnia on Monday night, so Tuesday I came in and I was very, very tired. And then on Wednesday, At work specifically, I had anticipated a larger workload than was expected, and I'm a supervisor, so I had to. I had the opportunity to balance out my workload for the future for my team, which was that like I got out on. We all got out on time, so that was a huge victory. So
Okay. Well, I gotta say that right there sounds more INTP than ENTP because I can't remember Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, I couldn't begin to answer that question.
That just maybe, but it's you because you have a regular work schedule and stuff, and you have events at work to mark your week by. It's probably not a very clear indicator either way, but it's sounding like you're doing more SE in general than one would normally expect from an INTP. Also, not definitive. Have you always been somebody who does shit?
yeah,
You're a doer.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I always have some hobby that I'm puttering around with. I'm fairly solitary, and I don't like to go out much, but I'm always doing something.
Okay, right. How
Do
much?
you like
Go ahead, Isaiah.
do you like create any media of any kind?
He's
Yeah,
musician.
Oh, right, yeah, musician. And do you have like a wide body of songs that you've created?
uh, yeah, they all end up in the trash eventually, but
Okay.
I mean, I have. I had a band. We did an EP, and I had songs on the full length. And then I continued to write songs. I probably have I don't know, like a catalog of 30 songs that I've completely forgotten. And that's not the only creative thing that I do. I mean, I also I run D&D, so I'm constantly like thinking about that or working on something for my players. For
I've
when
always
we
wanted to try that.
When it, oh, it's
I've
fun
always
as hell.
wanted to try that. Yeah, sounds like a fun NE playground.
Yeah.
It is.
Um, I did. I DM'd once with a group online. It was fun. I enjoyed it. it's like it's totally just as wheelhouse an activity as an any dom, especially an ENTP can engage in. It's like just easy screen. It's like live streaming. Live streaming is really
It's one of those things that ENTPs and ENFPs can do together without screaming at each other.
true. So okay, I'm increasingly thinking you're an ENTP. But let's see. Tell me, how is your how do you relate to an audience with your music? Like, are you seeking an audience actively? Are you trying to promote your stuff? Does it matter to you? Are you getting a lot of feedback or what?
Not right now. I will. I'm sure I will eventually. I'm at one point in time. I had to. Well, it was part had to for money and part by choice. I sold a lot of my equipment except for guitar, but now I'm like that gear has turned back on in my head, and I'm planning on probably writing an album worth of songs and probably just putting it up online for people to listen to.
If somebody gives you a really nice compliment about your song, they tell you your song it touched their soul. How does that make you feel?
Awkward.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, it makes me feel good, but awkward at the same time. Like, I definitely seek FE, but when I get it, I'm like,
It's a tricky thing to
juggle around, when somebody is.
FE. Third slot FE. People who aren't very nuanced in their FE are going to be constantly throwing us misses, But regardless, okay. So when did you first discover MBTI and typology?
November.
That's pretty recently.
Yeah.
And did
I pretty
you
much just told myself.
first encounter type descriptions or cognitive functions?
Type descriptions, and I was like, this is kind of interesting. Let's go figure out what this is about. And so, I went to the font of all information, the YouTube, and of course, discovered superpowers, and was like, oh, this is kind of interesting for like a couple weeks, and then I was like, man, this dude's got a paywall. Like, I'm kind of one of those people who's like, information should be free, knowledge should be given to the masses, and and he's and so I was like, well, I wonder. There's this guy who popped up in my feed, who's kind of like debating some of his concepts. Let me check him out, and he was ripping bong hits, and I was like, this guy reminds me a lot of you reminded me a lot of one of my old friends. So I was like, okay, well, I'll stay here and listen to this guy, and you basically laid out the TI of the cognitive functions. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm hooked now.
So, did you think when you're reading type descriptions, did you more identify with ENTP or INTP?
I thought I identified more with INTP.
Okay.
But I've also felt like maybe my extroverted feeling was just almost too good sometimes, I guess.
Right.
For INTP?
I know what you're talking about. Because I thought I was an INTP as well, and turns out I was mistyped, and I'm an ENTP. And I know what you're talking about, where you like your FE sometimes is like, it doesn't seem a whole lot like fourth slot.
Well, here's the other thing: is a lot of people self-identify with their tool function before they're dominant because it's what they're using all the time, and you're kind of swimming in your dominant. So a lot of ENTPs think, well, I'm ultra logical. I care a lot about TI shit. I'm an INTP. But the reality is, INTPs have a serious issue with SE. I mean, I don't type an INTP who doesn't muse pointlessly about how they're not doing various things that they'd like to possibly be doing.
Right.
So I haven't heard any such musing from you yet. You seem like you do what you're doing, and you kind of get frustrated at yourself for not necessarily doing it very efficiently, probably.
Or finishing.
Or finishing. But you do stuff regardless. So, I mean, that's very suggestive of ENTP rather than INTP.
The problems are reversed, kind of. It's like for ENTP, it's like, I have all these things that I'm doing, but I can't, like, spend, like, I don't have, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I'm sleeping for, like, 4 of those, and I have to divide up the rest to all these other things. And for INTP, it's probably more like,
well, INTPs understand the pointlessness of starting stuff you're not going to finish. We are unreasonably optimistic that we're going to finish it,
I have no equipment at all, but I'm going to go ahead and write an album and put it up online.
Yeah, so the truth is you don't need any equipment, dude. You know what equipment I have? I put out songs up all the time, and they're pretty well produced at this point. I'm getting pretty good at it. All I have is an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
That's all I have. And I have Audacity, and I get drums from YouTube, and I just use effects on the guitar to make bass. And you can do a lot of stuff with just an acoustic guitar. Surprising.
Well, I'm primarily a death metal player. So I have like specific ideas in mind, and while I could probably program some of those drums and get the sound that I want, like I know instrumentally I'm probably going to have to sink a little bit of money.
Okay, well, if you know what you want to do, you know what you want to do. The thing is, at the end of the day, starting a bunch of things is worthwhile. Don't throw them in the trash, especially unfinished stuff, because you'll come back to it eventually.
And don't feel bad for jettisoning something now and just coming back to it later, because your attention is grabbed right now on this other thing.
It just is going to happen.
But you've probably already learned that lesson.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm old enough at this point to kind of know my own habits.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing why I was almost starting to lean ENTP was just I'm extremely distractible. And I know from what I understand, INTPs can get pretty focused down, and as soon as something happens, I'm like looking around. So
Yeah, as an action type, ENTPs are more prone to generally being definitive about things, either being decisive about taking some sort of action when it's needed. Like for example, um, if there's some kind of an emergency or whatever, or there's a need for a bunch of handle to happen, ENTPs have sufficient self drive to get it done. INTPs need somebody else pushing on them the whole time. As soon as you stop pushing on them, they stop doing stuff.
oh
So
no, I've learned to function off of anxiety a long time ago.
okay, so I see you've turned your anxiety into motivation. That's good. Yeah. Um, all right. Well, so if I were to tell you you're an ENTP, what would be your primary arguments against it?
Um, Possibly because I guess some of the ways that maybe I've been answering these questions may have been specifically because we're in this sort of, typing interview process. I tend to do a lot of deliberation on my own, and avoid making decisions when I don't have to, and just kind of sit with it, and maybe eventually it'll go away. But I mean, I know that I know that's not true, but I do have a tendency to put things off till as far as humanly possible,
Yeah. If you don't want to do it, if you don't like it.
which is most things really,
Yeah.
except for the things that I find fun and interesting. I'm
Right.
ready to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is INTPs they they want to they have this difficult relationship with even stuff they find fun and interesting doing it. Like I remember when I was working with Spacey and we'd practice the song, and I wanted him to practice it a bunch of times, and he would just be so resistant to doing the same thing over and over again. It's SE polar. And it is
Mm.
true that he learned it incredibly fast and didn't need to practice much, but he still needed to practice some, and it was like pulling teeth because it was asking him to repeat the same action again and again for the purpose of better knowing it. But with that third slot SI, he wants to be selfish with his SI and to know what he wants to know, and that's it, you know? So he learned it good enough, according to him, which was he'd have all the words down, the melody down, but I wanted to be a little bit more NI resonant with it. You know, it's like I wanted it to be a certain exact way. So that's the thing is um, even if they do find something fun and interesting, they still resist the SE aspects of it, the basic follow through legwork aspects of things inherently, just because it's like it's foreign to them somehow. So yeah, I think you're an ENTP, and I'm also very deliberative much of the time. A lot of things that I say in live streams or in videos or whatever, I've thought about a long time before they actually come out of my mouth. And the thing is, I meaning that to say that I thought about them a long time before they come out of my mouth means that I thought about what I'm going to say and I thought about how I'm going to respond to every possible response to it. And so as a consequence, it sounds like a lot of times I'm incredibly quick on the fly, but I've actually deliberated that stuff out plenty of times before, usually. And so I'm relying a lot more on SI and TI internal stuff than it appears in the flow of the moment. So I think that's consistent with the ENTP as well. As a tool function user of TI, we're going to spend a lot of time when we're not talking out loud thinking through stuff in our head. You know, like do you ever miss exits on the freeway when you're too much caught up in thought?
Yeah, yeah. I do that. Uh, I have to give myself visual markers beforehand. So when that thing comes in my head, oh look, I'm over here,
Right.
and okay, I need to pay attention now. Stop.
Right. Well, yeah.
But then do you just try and like figure it out after that? Like I'm just gonna keep going and
Yeah. I'll keep going to the
just
next
trying to
exit.
figure my way out of this
Right.
situation.
Another thing that ENTPs sometimes do is when stuck in traffic, we will make a poor decision to freestyle it on the off the freeway or something. You know, go like, I'm sure I can find a shortcut here, and then like 45 minutes later, you're back where you started, going, "Fucking Eric."
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that before, definitely.
Because you get frustrated with waiting in traffic, and you're like,
Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I bet you this road comes out up ahead, and I can just cut through this little area.
right,
And I mean, I try not to do that. Like if I have my wife in the car,
right.
I'm like, no, we're just gonna go straight because if I veer off, then it's gonna be an argument.
But I'm sure that would drive an ISFJ crazy though too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, yeah. Like if I'm by myself, I'll be like, you know what? I bet you I can cut through here.
It's SE serving or being subsumed by extroverted intuition. So it's like, because you're an extroverted intuitor, first of all, you think possibilities, and your extroverted sensing acts on those things because it's subsumed by them. If you're an ESTP, you're going to do the other way around. Like, I said stupid shit like, I'm about to get on the freeway, right? But I don't like the length of the line of cars waiting to get on the freeway here. So I go, I'll go on the freeway over there, way far away, just because I don't want to wait in that line of
I'm
cars.
not about that.
But it depends on my mood, It's like I have to go, Eric, don't. If I'm being a little bit more mindful, I'll check myself and go, no, Eric, you wait in that line, you get in that line.
Bad idea.
So yeah, I mean, this seems like a pretty straightforward typing. You seem like an ENTP. When I first started talking to you, I thought maybe INTP was my initial guess because, and that's also indicative of kind of the situational thing like you were talking about, where in this circumstance, a person who has a second slot extroverted function will sometimes appear like the extrovert version. For example, it's especially so with INFJs and ISFJs, who in this kind of context would seem like extroverts. Because the extroverted feeling in the tool function really appears as dominant. But the thing is, the initial impression of you as being more quiet and deliberative is because the opposite thing happens with the extroverts. So you're more TI in this context than you'd probably normally be because you're attending by a tool function. Like, okay, this is a tool function on moment. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense. Because usually I'm just like wee off in my head
right.
in La La Land.
Well, we don't type very many ENTPs. Not what I would call clear cut ENTPs here. There are some people who are
Yeah.
kind of like that Raphael guy from Germany. I don't know what the hell he is. He's confusing me.
Who's
Yeah,
that?
at first I thought he was ENTP too, but I
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I know what guy you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
He might be ESTJ. That's possible because that third slot NE kind of looks pretty active sometimes. I don't know. I got to think more about that Raphael guy, but it's pretty.
Wait, were you talking about that guy who you ended up typing as INFJ?
Yeah,
yeah, I think what we were talking
he's
about.
not an INFJ. He's got
You don't think
terrible.
so?
He's got terrible FE.
Yeah, his FE was not good.
Even at the time I typed him as INFJ, it was like it was because I had eliminated everything else. But maybe he's an ENTJ. I don't know what the hell he is. Regardless, what I'm trying to get at is it's pretty rare that we type a straightforward, obvious ENTP. You're an ENTP, like he's an ENTP, like I'm an ENTP. We can all sort of chat with one another. It's pretty obvious that we're all the same
Oh
type,
yeah.
and it's nice and
Right.
it's nice and clean. I hate it when I get people like that Raphael dude. Like, what the hell is he? I don't like system busters like him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got 15 minutes or more left. We started a little late. So you want to direct the conversation here?
Sure. Actually, I actually was curious about how you see the functions interplay with music creation.
Uh, well, I think that as extroverted intuitors, our shortcoming, our inherent natural shortcoming, is to err on the side of different over true. Um, and what we have to sort of come to terms with as music creators is to value that NI and to not reject it because it sounds familiar in some way, but to embrace it because it sounds familiar but isn't the same as anything else. To me, that's where the resonance of melodic truth comes from. Is It's this phenomenon of something that sounds like you've heard it before, but you haven't actually heard it before.
Right, and as I've been writing recently, I've been looking at the next part. I want to sound like it should go there, but I don't want it to be the expected part that sounds like it should go there. It needs to be different enough to where you don't expect it, but it needs to be the exact thing that you're looking for.
Yeah,
It's a tough balancing act, and I'm just starting to sort of get it because, like, I'm very beginning on this music creation thing.
well, I mean, the thing is, it sounds to me like you're doing it exactly right. What I would say is the other possible thing is you put the thing that's exactly what you expect to be there, but then you tweak it in some little way to make it. A good example of that is what what they do in the chorus of Stacy's Mom. That song by Fountains of
Yeah, no,
Wayne. Yeah, it's got a weird change in the chorus that makes it just different enough for the whole thing to work and have sort of lasting play. But the other thing I would say about the cognitive functions is we have to we have to struggle with lyrics somewhat. I know I do. That my lyrics tend to be too wordy and not necessarily resonant with people emotionally. They tend to be kind of jokey or clever without having a sort of good authentic resonance. So it's something I try to work on is at least in some of my songs, writing about real human experiences rather than just abstractions. I don't know if that's a
Yeah,
problem for you or not.
here are some.
no, no. Go ahead, Isaiah.
I just wanted to show you an example. There are some lyrics that I wrote for this stupid rap thing that I'm doing. Eleanor the felon heard a pelican and fettered it to tether it and ended up unelegantly venerating everything with feathers and commemorated ventilated whether epileptic heather was a seller or invented in a melody ostensibly incredible with elephants with memories intelligently
Yeah.
celebrated.
It's very skillful, right? The problem is
Yeah,
it's not very resonant with anybody. That's good, Isaiah. I like that.
it goes on. It's very long,
I'm
but
sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, I tend to be a little verbose myself, and not even that, I mean, usually I try to trim my stanzas down a little bit, but I still end up with excessive large words.
Right. And so it's something we have to actually consciously consciously work against. And
and constrained.
yeah, and it's difficult because it's saying it's like we've got all these neat sword tricks, right? Like I can do this fancy move, and I can do this fancy move, and I can do it better than anybody else. Well, but those fancy moves, they don't. It's like they're impressive but not good. That's the
Yeah,
problem. And it'll forever be a challenge for me. I'll continue to battle with it. But what else about functions? Well, SI means you're gonna have trouble remembering your songs. SI in the fourth. I can only play like 10 of my songs maybe, and I've got hundreds of them. And from memory, I can only play like 5 of them. I usually have to look at the chord changes to play them.
yeah. I tend to write really complex songs also, since it's death metal. So it's like uh, I'll end up with be like, man, I want to play this song again, and just to check on it and like see how it feels, and then I'll get like a quarter of the way through it, and I'll just kind of like look down and be like, damn.
You gotta write down all the chord changes.
Yeah, I know. I should, or at least record what I'm listening so I can figure out the fingering later. And
Don't
just
do that. You're gonna hate yourself for doing that. There's never later never comes. Okay,
no, it doesn't.
to the extent that you can be TE now and do the thing that you want, we're gonna do later now. You'll be very grateful to yourself later for having done it now. If you put down the chord changes and stuff in your Google Docs, I've got a bunch of random Google Docs of stuff that half finished stuff, quarter finished stuff. My Google Docs thing, for every completed document I have in there, I must have 10 things that are just half-ass starts of things. So it's just par for the course. There's nothing you can
Yeah.
do about it. I don't know. It has to do with countervaluing TE. We don't like to apply it to our own lives. If somebody else has a problem, we are there with the
Yeah.
solution. Here's the solution for you.
Yeah, I'm always like to my wife, just tell me what you need. I'll go do it. I got no issue.
I'm so happy my brother's an INTJ. He like sees me doing something in a retarded TE way, and he like helps me out with it. And like, why don't you just do like, what are you doing? Like, that kind of stuff. I don't know.
So, I mean, that's good. That's also indicative of FI polar. We don't mind when the ISFJ or the INFJ, in my instance, I've also got a TE polar person. We don't mind when they can't figure out how to open the gate. We have no
Yes.
problem time and again. Oh, it's fine. I'll do it for you, sweetie, because that's FI polar. We don't know what we want to do. So having this other person have a need tells us what we want to do. So we don't have to think
And
about it anymore.
and they're TE polar, so they're not going to tell you that you're doing it in a way that's like actually kind of shitty, but it's just kind of
It's good
working.
enough. It's good enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just going to be impressed that you got it done at all. So you're going to
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
good about your TE, and you're going to be like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm the man. I know how to handle
Yeah,
shit.
I feel like that, and I'm sure she's like, I just told him that to make him feel better.
She's not. She doesn't know any better. She's TE polar. She
No,
actually thinks she did a great job.
She does. She's actually, her TE is pretty good. Her TE polar is usually that she refuses to take any sort of instruction on anything. Like she's just, I got to do it myself. Like she'll throw away, like we'll get a piece of furniture that needs to be built, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she'll like I'm gonna do it, and then she'll sit down, but she like won't look at she like refuses to read directions, and then eventually gets up and she's like, "You do it," and I'll get up and I'll go do it.
When she makes food, does she use way more dishes than she needs to use to cook anything?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need a separate bowl for every ingredient, right?
The thing that she'll like, I mean, she cooks great. I mean,
I'm sure she does. I'm sure she does.
but she'll just like, okay, well, we'll have these pots, but then she needs to get another pot so she can combine everything into that pot, so there's like
right. Why not combine 1 and 2 into either 1 or 2, and why get 3?
Right.
And if you cook, could you describe your process with that yourself?
I need directions usually.
Okay.
I mean, I'll sometimes I'll like try to spice it up with something, but I actually generally have to. A lot of the things that I cook are bullshit anyway.
Left to your own devices, are you most likely to microwave something and eat it over the trash can?
Yeah, in the kitchen, leaning on the counter.
Yeah. So if she's not feeding you, that's how you're feeding yourself. Basically, it's just getting food into yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also very INTP. It's like I cook more than Rachel does. Neither of us really cook much though. We're big on minimizing the amount of effort put into SI. So we do things like eat snacks and and just have like the quickest things we can eat, or go out and get something or whatever. But with ISFJ, you get the SI in a more intense format, I guess.
Well, and I have this weird. I wouldn't say it's weird. I have this nostalgic thing where like I've just always associated family and eating together. So it's like, if I'm just making a snack for myself, I'll just chow down whatever. But like, if we're eating together, if we've just picked up fast food, like I'll go and hang out in the room just so I can like break bread with her or whatever.
Your family loved you, huh?
They do. I hope.
I mean, your parents loved you, is what I mean. Your parents loved you.
Oh yeah. I had a pretty good family. Yeah.
Yeah,
you were pretty well.
You can tell. You're one of those happy, secure people. Congratulations.
I don't know about secure. I can think of 1,000 ways that things could go wrong at all times, but I mean, in terms of generally happy, I'd say yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
In terms of self-concept, not in terms of a life situation.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think what else? I had another interesting question, but I can't seem to remember it. Should have wrote it down.
Eh, um,
Happens.
so let's see. What other part of the stack haven't we gone over? Yeah, we haven't really gone over fifth slot NI. According to my understanding of it, it's an absolute value. So when you say like truth is underlying everything, that's consistent with NI being an absolute value. But it's also ignoring. I found this manifest in my life as if I don't if the NI on something isn't clear, I just drag my feet about it indefinitely. So there may be like three choices, let's say A, B, and C. But I'm not happy with any of those three choices, even though they're really clear cut. These are the three choices I have. I just drag my feet and not make any choice and default to whatever default is, I guess, or just sort of like throw a little fit and destroy the thing entirely so that I don't have to make one of those three choices because I don't like the fact that none of them is the NI correct choice.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's not so crystal clear that you can't. It's almost like since the NI is not there, you can't differentiate.
Right. Like I had some choices about what to do at work, like for work one time, and the thing is, I didn't want to do any of those things. The reality is, I didn't want to do that work, but I thought, well, I have to work, and so I end up going, well, choice A maybe. And I just sort of don't call any of them, and then just sort of blow it up by default. And then I'm like,
There's
oh,
this.
I guess I wasn't meant to work this year on those things. So good.
There's this NI ignoring thing that it's like a little. It's a little tough to articulate, but I heard Eric describe it one time in an older video that I stumbled across, and I thought it was it was spot on pretty much for NI ignoring it. It was the potato toucher story.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. One time, do you know the potato touching story? I'll tell you. Okay, so once I went to a restaurant and I saw one time I sat at the counter, so you could see the waitresses preparing people's meals and taking it to them. That when they put butter in the potato, they touched the ends of the potato with their fingers to push open the potato to put the butter in. I didn't like the fact they were touching the potatoes, right? So I said to myself, next time I order a meal, which comes with potato, I'm going to sit at the counter, I'm going to watch them like a hawk and see how much they touch my potato, right? So I ordered a meal, and I'm watching, and I don't see them touching my potato at any point. And then my meal comes to me, and I realize I ordered rice pilaf. I didn't get the potato.
Yeah, that's so like that sort of thing where you're like
ignore
worrying
it.
about something, you don't realize that this underlying thing makes your entire thing irrelevant, kind of thing.
My SI was overtaking my NI. My SI had remembered my instructions to myself from before.
Yeah.
Watch when you order a meal. But it failed to take into account the NI obvious fact. If you order a meal and don't order a potato, they aren't going to touch your potato.
It's very, very similar to how I had planned out to plug up my phone and be in the home office that we have in our apartment, and get a cup of coffee so I could sit down for this whole thing, and then realize that I completely and utterly flubbed the time differentiation between Eastern Time Standard and Pacific Time, and was like, oh my god, it's now.
Yeah.
I'm actually at a Wendy's drive-thru. I went to go pick up food.
Good. You're getting square burgers. That's good. I tell you, what Wendy's teaches us is that round burgers are totally inadequate. The key thing for
Obviously
a burger
inferior.
is square.
Corners have flavor that's missing from all other round burgers.
That's right.
There's no bready parts with mustard and onions and
The problem
no
is,
meat.
it's a problem. The lack of angles. You need angularity to your food, or else it doesn't taste proper.
And there's something satisfying about biting straight into one of the corners too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it kind of gives you more burger too if it's not, if the weight.
Well, that's the gimmick there, right? They're saying, look, why are you cutting off the edges of my burger? As though burgers naturally occur in square form, but you're being robbed of your corners by other places. It's a pretty good any attack, really. It's like
I'd like my corners on the side, please.
it sort of frames burgers in a way that the other guys necessarily lose.
I think when I go through the drive-thru, I'm going to ask for a burger with all corners, no straight line.
Great idea. You just have a bunch of little triangles on your little meat triangles on your burger. That'd be funny. You go to McDonald's and be like, you know all those corners you cut off all of your round burgers? Can you use those to please make me a burger out of triangles?
You just put them right. I'll just carry them out.
Okay, well, any last thoughts, concerns, complaints, queries, questions?
I'm sure I'll think of them later.
Yeah.
And do you feel that you've made a butt out of yourself?
Absolutely not. Put the video up, dude.
All right, cool.
All right,
Thank
sweet.
you. I appreciate that. It's nice to type a straightforward, clear as day ENTP.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I was like, man, I'm such an introvert. Like I'm quiet a lot of the time and blah 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 blah. I was thinking I was INTP this entire time, but
Lots of
obviously
ENTPs think that.
Yeah, I
They-
think
They don't quite get how talky they are.
Well, I think the thing is people don't quite get how difficult it is for INTPs to do stuff, and how the way that you are with your relationship with doing stuff is textbook ENTP,
Hmm.
and that's really
That
more
makes
definitive than anything else. Because that SE polar is kind of it's kind of undeniable, you know. All right, well, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the video now, and have a great day, everybody at home watching this video.